Let's talk about imagination and creativity. Starting with Galileo, who easily caught sight of several blurry specks of light unseen by anyone before him using merely a few pieces of glass. The age of gods and mythical creatures faded, and the age of science fiction dawned. Mankind's supreme imagination regarding the spiritual essence of nature slowly shifted from gods and demons to extraterrestrial life, a transformation we have long taken for granted. Our tiny Earth is already overcrowded, yet every time we gaze up at the countless stars scattered across the sky, an inescapable loneliness washes over us. We long for other beings hidden deep within the sea of stars, ones equally curious and driven to explore as we are, and we hold out hope for beautiful tales of encounters between us. Perhaps this is because humanity as a species bears a striking trait that even baffles itself. We all recognize sincerity and mutual assistance as virtues, yet what we repeatedly unleash upon one another are artillery and slander. It seems that by our own devices, we can never resolve our own afflictions. Thus, the sprawling, boundless cosmos has been invested with a sacred expectation that the answers we long for may lie somewhere among the stars. That answer may unveil itself tomorrow, or in some far-flung future across time and space. It may even remain forever out of reach until the end of days. Yet, CIG, through the power of its imagination, has given us an answer within the game. The Xi'an have become steadfast friends of humanity, and the starships produced by GetAC Corporation stand as a magnificent embodiment of this beautiful, hopeful resolution. Long before the release of the Railen&Tyilui, players were already familiar with their general silhouettes and structural designs. Even so, once we get our hands on the finished craft, it is worthwhile to revisit and thoroughly discuss how CIG interprets and visualizes Xi'an technological aesthetics. When it comes to conceptualizing and artistically depicting alien civilizations, humanity has amassed an enormous library of reference material over the past centuries, spawning numerous artistic schools centered around extraterrestrial fantasies. Within the universe crafted by CIG, we can already observe several distinctly different stylistic factions. For illustration, we may take starships of the Bennu, Vanduul, and Xi'an as examples. Vanduul vessels lean heavily into biomimicry, aggression, and imposing visuals, mirroring their bitter rivalry with humans in lore. Bennu ships evoke ancient carved stone simplicity, while Xi'an tech bears striking geometric, mechanical similarities to human engineering. Separated from lore, many would easily mistake Xi'an craft for humanity's future starships. All alien ships carry faint biomimetic vibes, yet this is not a universal design core. For Bennu and Xi'an, such impressions stem mostly from viewers' subjective associations rather than CIG's original creative intent. Still, designers deploy distinct visual flourishes to highlight their extraterrestrial technology. First off, its engine layout sets it apart instantly from all human ships in-game. 4 bold, angled protrusions extend forward of the main fuselage, a signature family design shared with its smaller sibling, the Syulen, giving the craft an instantly recognizable unique silhouette at first glance. These appendages are transformable. The lower 2 double as sturdy rear landing supports when grounded. Shape-shifting during takeoff and landing is typical of alien vessels. Yet GetAC employs this mechanic far more extensively on its starships. The 4 structures are etched with totemic energy patterns that brighten and dim dynamically mid-flight, hinting its propulsion draws power from archaic arcane forces. The engines feature a texture resembling flower cores, amplifying an air of mystery. The main hull, by contrast, avoids over-the-top styling. Manned turrets on both sides are framed by elegant circular outlines, which effectively balance the bulky visual weight created by the dense complex lines across the rest of the vessel. The forward cockpit takes the form of a faceted triangle with a sleek, futuristic finish. And the boarding hatch on its lower half creates subtle visual symmetry with the cockpit. The Railen&Tyilui differ most drastically at their sterns. As a dedicated freighter, the Railen sports slope-armored external cargo bays and docking ports at the rear. The Tyilui, meanwhile, features a bay for deploying and retrieving compact internal snub fighters. Though distinct, both carry unique aesthetic charm. Personally, I prefer the look of the Railen. Secondly, countless deliberate fine details stand out, such as multiple levitating components labeled alien technology by CIG. By current human standards, effortless mastery over gravity still represents ultra-advanced tech. These visual cues subtly signal the vessel's unfathomable technology, heightening its mystique and distinct extraterrestrial aura. From orderly yet irregular geometric shapes and shifting magenta-purple glow effects to alien-style button markings, every design element departs drastically from conventional human machinery. It is clear how dedicated CIG is to crafting a genuinely otherworldly starship. I think its exterior design turns out quite well. The elaborate interwoven lines are intricately arranged without looking dull. Aside from the initial confusion and wandering gaze brought by its unfamiliar look at first sight, the balance of visual weight is handled perfectly. Both ships are accessed via levitating boarding platforms. However, the platforms lack light indicators. The area is dimly lit to begin with, and the starships themselves feature numerous eye-catching details, making the platforms visually indistinct once they touch down. Additional lighting effects should be added for clearer visual guidance, with several viable approaches to achieve this. Or this? Ignoring the character legs, the boarding animation evokes a solemn, almost pilgrim-like atmosphere. After stepping inside, the glowing lighting within the platform bay stands out beautifully, yet it is placed in an awkward spot that many players might overlook. Stepping inside the vessels, the Railen&Tyilui feature vastly different interior layouts. Boarding the Railen first leads you to the bottom deck equipment bay. 4 gear lockers and 2 retractable weapon racks are laid out symmetrically along the central axis. Smooth, polished animations once again demonstrate the Xi'an civilization's masterful command over gravity. Further ahead sits the ship's internal elevator. The elevator plays an audio cue each time its gravity sensors trigger. As for the Tyilui, a living biotope display is embedded in the ceiling directly before the elevator, flanked by 2 compact equipment prep bays that lead to the main hangar. We'll explore that area later. Let's head up to the second deck first. Upon taking the elevator to the second deck, an animated light fixture sits at the hall's center. It illuminates the central area automatically when you step within its sensor range, another thoughtful detail that elevates the whole ambient atmosphere. The second deck houses numerous functional compartments, yet the overall design is brilliantly executed. Let's take our time to go through everything. The first thing you'll spot upon arriving is the dining table straight ahead. The surrounding decor frames this space perfectly as both a functional hub and visual focal point. The transparent canopy of the upper bridge cockpit overlooks the dining area, acting as an integrated window here, a clever design choice. Bear in mind, however, the open cutout layout lets crew members on the upper level drop straight down into this spot. So while you're having a meal, make sure no one upstairs is aiming their weapons at your plate. From lighting and texturing to line work and geometric shaping, this area fully demonstrates the design team's command over atmospheric composition. It appears deceptively simple, yet is packed with deliberate, thoughtful details. Flanking the dining area are 2 matching zones, One side houses the restrooms, 2 washrooms for a 4-person crew should be plenty. The lighting inside is remarkably dim, to the point where precise use could prove tricky. The other side features a decorative display niche. CIG describes it as some form of alien installation, and leaning into mystery this way is by no means a poor design choice. Still, I think swapping the display for an actual viewport would feel far more natural and comfortable from a human perspective. Both sections feature stylish scenic deck designs that blend holographic natural landscapes with animal projections. The sight of butterflies and fish immediately brings to mind the philosophical allusions from Zhuangzi, Zhuangzou's dream of the butterfly, and the famous line, "You are not the fish, how can you know the joy of the fish?" It's a wonderfully clever, evocative detail. Standing by the elevator, you are flanked and backed by access chambers to the manned turret stations and crew living quarters. Let's first take a look at the spatial design leading to the manned turret base. Along the route to the manned turrets, 2 escape pods line the wall. This feature has not yet been implemented in-game, and I found no interaction prompt to activate or open them. Across from the pods sits a small viewport, a remarkably welcome detail from a human perspective. The tiny seat beside it gives the impression that even the Xi'an indulge in quiet, poetic moments of reflection. An empty component bay is installed next to the viewport, currently unused. 1 manned turret is fitted to each side of the hull. Constrained by their firing arcs, they provide very limited defensive coverage directly above, directly below, and to the rear of the ship. So when the vessel is hauling cargo and comes under pirate attack, the pilot will need to maneuver tactically to compensate. A component bay sits beside the door on one side of the quarters. I can't quite figure out the reasoning behind this standalone placement. Behind the second deck elevator platform are the crew living quarters. They exude a warm, tranquil vibe steeped in Xi'an style, though human players will still need time to adjust to the color palette. While striking, mysterious decorative installations frame both entry hatches. They aren't enough to shift the space into something humans would find comfortably restful. Of course, this is simply where players log in and out of the game, not a space intended for genuine rest. After all, the designer's primary focus is preserving stylistic consistency across the entire cabin and reflecting the Xi'an aesthetic preferences. Each bunk features individually adjustable lighting, though it does little to alter the overall ambience. Heading up to the ship's 3rd deck, you'll find 6 component bays surrounding the elevator platform. Their purpose is straightforward. Nearly all core systems are housed here, making maintenance far more convenient across different operational scenarios. Personally, I prefer keeping component bays clustered in one dedicated area for easier upkeep. Scattering them all over the ship would be unnecessarily cumbersome. That said, spatial layout decisions can't be made purely on a whim, particularly when vessels are being built to the gold standard. The first thing you see from the elevator platform is the ship's aft compartment, another area where the Railen&Tyilui-The diverge. On the railing, this space holds an equipment bay and a docking hatch with a clean, straightforward layout. The Tyilui, by contrast, has no functional space here at all. Before we move on to the bridge, let's head back down to the Tylui's first deck to examine its core hangar design. The hangar's interior is genuinely inventive. Across aesthetics, spatial layout, and built-in amenities, it demonstrates a distinctly sophisticated grasp of space optimization, packed with clever design choices that boost usable density. It's a really engaging area to explore. The hangar's retractor beam system is operated from the co-pilot station on the Tylui's bridge, while buttons beside the landing pad control the bay doors. The area houses 4 docking slots for snapcraft and 2 cargo control panels. The circular gravity walkway serves a functional purpose while also being a clear homage to Stanley Kubrick's iconic spacecraft design concepts. Plenty of players will have a great time experimenting with it. In actual use, however, it comes off as more flash than function. During our testing, for example, some small craft suffered persistent clipping issues that prevented proper docking, and the extremely cramped layout significantly hurts day-to-day operational convenience. Even so, the sheer ingenuity of the design itself still deserves high praise. Back on the 3rd deck, we head into the bridge. Don't overlook the 2 component bays flanking the bridge entrance, one on either side. Both bridges are fitted with 4 seats, but the roles of those stations differ between the Railen&Tyilui. On the Railen, the 2 rear seats operate the ship's dual aft tractor beams. On the Tyilui, they control the pair of remotely piloted turrets mounted at the stern. All 4 seats rest on a slightly raised platform, but the height transition is designed as a shallow slope rather than discrete steps. I can't say why they went with this over proper steps. If you have long legs, you can clear it in one stride. But for everyone else, it carries this quiet sense that you're one misstep away from slipping and tumbling. Assuming you make it up onto the platform unscathed, you're all set to take your seat. Let's briefly recap the artistic direction of these two vessels. Aside from differences in their exteriors and select internal layouts stemming from their distinct functional purposes, the entire second deck and roughly half of the third deck are identical across the Railen&Tyilui, giving them a tightly unified stylistic identity. Building on the linework philosophy and lighting style first established by the Syulen, these ships further refine and deepen the aesthetic depth of that design language. Painstakingly crafted geometric forms and material pairings define the atmosphere and the personality of every space on board. Layered linear details throughout add subtle visual cadence to the lines and surfaces, keeping the streamlined design from ever feeling flat or monotonous. The palette of near charcoal dark gray accented with purple builds an eerie, striking mystique. The combined with the constant shape-shifting of dynamic components and the matching sound effects. All these design choices foster a subconscious sense of the unfathomable, the disorienting, and the novel. Together, they forge the unmistakably alien character of the Railen&Tyilui. The artistic direction succeeds brilliantly at selling that otherworldly feel. That said, the lighting scheme takes some getting used to, and some viewers may even experience mild physical eye strain from it. For the sake of watchability in this video, I adjusted the in-game gamma and brightness settings when capturing interior footage and brightened the clips further in post-processing. The raw, unmodified in-game visuals are noticeably dimmer and murkier than what you see here, so please keep that difference in mind. See these two glowing orbs? Told you this ship runs on ancient magic, right? All 4 crew stations offer excellent forward visibility, though side views have minor obstructions. The MFD layout comes off as slightly cluttered, with rather loud VVID color schemes. But framed as part of the alien design language, it's hardly a shortcoming. That said, this ancient magic doesn't deliver much when it comes to actual flight performance. For all how sleek and impressive the seat entry animation looks, the real handling feels fairly mediocre. Given the ship's scale and core purpose, its understated maneuverability is hardly surprising. After all, transport-focused vessels in this game are universally sluggish and unwieldy to pilot. Let's break down the Railen's cargo hauling performance. The biggest upside of its external cargo base is how straightforward loading becomes. Whether you're stowing cargo inside a standard hangar or using external container platforms as stations, the process is far quicker and more direct. The dual tractor beams also take a lot of hassle out of loading and unloading, and the combined rated capacity of 640 SCU is fairly substantial. That said, the open-air configuration makes vehicle loading highly impractical. In terms of overall versatility, it simply can't match the no-nonsense utility of the similarly priced C2. Even the Tyilui doesn't outperform the C2 when it comes to hauling capacity or general-purpose flexibility. As for the cargo armor, it looks elaborate, and technically it does offer some nominal protection for the containers. But based on our simulated damage tests, given how thin the ship's overall defenses are, you might as well write it off as cosmetic. Don't let the armor plating give you a false sense of security. If the ship itself gets blown apart, it hardly matters whether your cargo stays intact. Speaking of defensive capability, let's take a look at how both vessels stack up in terms of armament. Both the Railen&Tyilui mount 4 size 4 forward cannons, with the CF-447 as their default loadout. Each vessel also features 2 manned turrets, one on either side of the hull, each fitted with dual size 4 cannons, also defaulting to the CF-447. The Tyilui adds an extra pair of remote-controlled aft turrets, each armed with twin size 3 cannons, chambered for the CF-337, which delivers a noticeable boost to its rear arc defensive coverage. For missile armament, both ship variants carry a standard payload of 16 size 1 missiles and 4 size 2 missiles. Given the deeply recessed internal design of their launchers, however, it is safe to assume the missile racks cannot be swapped out for alternative configurations. This firepower loadout is perfectly par for the course for ships of this tier. After all, these are cargo haulers with distinct functional focuses, not purpose-built combat vessels. Their remaining components also align with their class and intended role. All in all, while the Tyilui fills a somewhat awkward niche in fleet operations, the Railen is first and foremost a pure freight hauler. Stick to secure trade lanes and steer clear of high-risk areas. Its ability to hold its own against pirate raids is rather limited. Stacked up against the seasoned C2 in the same class, the C2 clearly offers far better all-around scenario versatility. Even so, these 2 new alien ships bring their own unique qualities to the piloting experience. In particular, a price hike earlier this year before the ships went flyable has rendered Railen CCU upgrade packages uniquely valuable. Players who secured theirs ahead of time definitely made a shrewd move. On the design front, I'd say the overall stylistic identity of both ships holds up well, with thoughtful, polished details scattered throughout. Admittedly, the interior lighting can cause visual discomfort for some, but this level of stylistic cohesion isn't something you can just tweak on a whim. Players can only make limited adjustments via the in-cabin lighting controls. At the end of the day, it's an aesthetic that really boils down to personal preference. Regardless, the fact that these two ships are now flyable, paired with a steady stream of patches and iterations the game continues to receive, is clear proof that Star Citizen as a project is still evolving and moving forward. For players who remain enthusiastic about the Stanton universe, that in itself is plenty to be happy about. Remember what I said about imagination and creativity at the start of this video. There are countless testaments to just how extraordinary humanity is when we wield these two forces. I believe that very spark lives in all of us. In the Star Citizen community, it's why we're so attuned to that creative drive and why we feel such deep resonance with the vision and craft CIG brings to this game, along with all the hope that comes with it. Of course, not every expectation is met with the warm payoff we hope for. That's just how the real world works. A blade of withered grass tossed by the wind may have once longed to stand as a pine atop a distant mountain. A stray rock adrift in the cosmos may have once had its own intended orbit, but fate is what it is. It always has its own designs. Perhaps none of us will ever truly voyage among the stars in this lifetime. Perhaps matching wits with endless bugs and glitches in Star Citizen is as close as we'll ever get to that dream. Even so, we keep clinging to those inevitably imperfect hopes and those seemingly small, fragile joys. Because, hey, that's damn fate for you, too. Thank you all, as always, for your support. I'll see you in the next video.